It's going to be great fun. Frédéric, I believe, so for anybody tuning in to observe today, who's doing it for the first time, it's a slightly weird experience when we have, when we're in the middle of COVID, because we can't have any pianists playing along, we don't have any ensembles to conduct. So Frédéric has chosen a recording that sort of, I assume, speaks to your sensibility of the piece. And the way this works is that Frédéric will press play on his end, and we'll conduct the recording, which is a strange thing to do, but we can still actually talk about a lot. So I think it's also more pleasurable for you listening in to be able to hear the music that we're talking about. So anyway, thank you, Frédéric. And let's start with the first movement of Debussy's La Mer.
Well, nice to meet you, Alexander. Thank you so much for the opportunity today. So let's start.
Frédéric, I'm so sorry to stop you. You're muted, which means we can't.
Actually, I didn't share my sound, which is the issue.
Yeah. I thought it's really amazingly quiet. You've started beautifully already. great job. So just at my end, the music was like a beat behind you, but it's quite an interesting exercise. We always have to think ahead anyway as conductors, so it was just interesting to see how you were preparing what I was about to hear anyway. But it made certain things a little strange. So first of all, great job. I mean, what's lovely is you know the score backwards. You don't even need to have it in front of you. It's just,
no.
And that's something we can also talk about is, how when one decides to free oneself from the score, because it seems to me like you know it very well. And when it comes to this, like performance, you can just close it. And
well, I did have my master's recital 6 days ago, and I did it by memory, so it's very fresh.
You know very well then that it actually frees up the physical side, and the eyes and stuff. It's really nice. You can suddenly create different lines. So bravo on that. You have so many aspects of what you're doing is very communicative and strong. You're warm, and that's lovely. You smile, and I enjoy watching you conduct and following you. So there's a couple of things that I would start with talking about. One is that I find with both hands, and we're starting, at a high level, you can conduct this stuff. That's all fine. I find that with both hands, you could now aspire to create longer lines through your gestures. So thinking about how in a line that's building, let's say, a crescendo over 4 bars, how with one of your arms, your physicality really follows that path. So that, if you start a piano phrase around here, that in the next bar, it's kind of here, and the next bar, it's here, and then you arrive here, but if someone to sort of measure the amplitude, it's very controlled. So getting to a point where you add that dimension of the sort of connection of the bars in your physicality, I'd love to talk about. And some small technical things like when you use your left hand, which is very expressive, and I think we can talk about things you might do with it. There are moments where your right hand becomes passive in a not particularly helpful way. So we can work at that. And one final thing is at the very beginning, I'm concerned sometimes that your 1 stays in the spot. So you go 1, 2, 1, 2, which is sometimes not a problem at all. But I think this stuff that's happening in the strings, just get used to
having moving more.
Yeah, it's a really simple thing, but I just noticed it, and it distracts me a little bit. Why don't we go back to the top? Okay,
of course.
Beginning of the piece. It's a nice, easy place to start. And let's just take the opening bars one more time, if you wouldn't mind conducting it one more time.
Do you want the music or not?
Let's take it with the music once, please, and we can do it without. I'll turn you up again. Good. Excellent. Excellent. So a couple of points. The very opening is just double basses in the symphony, right? This would be enough. That's enough. Okay. And you just get no attack. It'll be beautiful. So let's practice it together. Left hand out. This hand is kind of, you can relax your fingers a little bit. Can you relax your hand a little more? The right hand? Yeah. Or maybe just even put it down here. Flatten your hand a little bit. Flatten your hand. You turn it so your hand's facing the floor. Yeah. And then just with your fingertips, imagine there's a little marble under here. And then you're just going to tap the top of the marble very gently. Yeah. Now just do it from your wrist. But what I'd like to do, I'll come a bit closer. So the movement is, yeah, it can be even smaller. So there's a very, 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 very small mouse here, and you just want to touch the top hair of its head. And yeah. So, the timpani is pianissimo. Double basses will be starting at an up bow in pianissimo. And, they're ready and set to go. And that's the other thing. I would just, I know it's a strange context, right? Doing the press play and stuff like that. But I would, before we start, just be within the calm of the sound for a few moments. And so if you take that as enough, then doing this is completely, I mean, it's like a massive we don't need. So that's something maybe just to focus. How do I feel completely centered and calm? Is my physicality relaxed and centered? So we're standing in front of the orchestra, the applause has just died down. You can catch the eye of the timpani, double basses out of your peripheral vision. The hand comes up. And now, the first bar, if you wish to beat through it, of course you can. There's nothing wrong with 1, 2, 3, 4. But actually, nothing's happening. There's only 2 people that play on the next downbeat, right? So there's not 2 people, there's 7 other people who play basses. Right? So, downbeat. That's the biggest you need.
Yep.
Boom. Whoa. And then the orchestra has the pulse. Right? So if you want to, you can basically just give a gesture. So let's just do the first 2 bars together. So great. There were a couple of movements that weren't necessary when you moved across to the harp.
Yep.
With your hand, you did a kind of preparatory up, then down, then up again, and then down. So again, let's take the beginning. We've got attack of the timpani and the. My hands are shaking. I've drunk so much coffee today. Like my hands, I don't know if you can see on the screen, but they're not calm. Okay, so anyway, we're up there and we say, let's just give the entry to the double bass. Oh, that's quite a big one. And eyes across to the harp. Boom, boom, boom. So really it's just entry here, move your eyes to them if you want, and then pick up, downbeat. Mm-hmm. I would say, which instrument do you play?
Violin.
Violin. So if you imagine starting at the tip, right? You don't need this. You don't need this, right? What you need is this. That's all you need.
Yeah.
And this, what you would like as a conductor is how, if you want that, then you're doing the right gesture. Mm-hmm. You've always got to remember the instrument you're conducting, right? So timpani is going to go like that, and the violin or the double bass is going to attack in an up. So just imagine, okay, what would you do? Just go. And now the up bow's on its way. Yeah, that's all you need. Try it again. And by the way, I deliberately do, like this gesture we could do. This gesture immediately has a hint more of like, I've got a stick in my hand or I'm about. This one, even if you do a vertical motion, is a horizontal gesture. Mm-hmm. The difference between palm and then it's just got more delicacy to it. So I would consider you can practice what it's like to have a flat hand, at least have the option of doing that compared to this or this or this. Okay, try it again, the downbeat. Good. So the same rules, sorry to stop you, the same rules apply for doing this pickup as they do with a beat. So if we're beating, we say, all right, here's the axis. Mm-hmm. Pick up, we're going to arrive back on the axis. So we're not going to go and 1, we go and 1, right? Mm-hmm. The same applies here. If you're doing a very small gesture, say, let's take that little red line at the bottom of the painting there, yeah? So if I go and 1, mm-hmm. and 1, that's the point of attack, even though we're not looking for a harsh attack. But make sure you don't do and. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No. Try it again. Thanks. Good. Do you play piano at all?
A little bit, yes. Yeah.
Well, if you imagine if you imagine what it feels like to piss, so bum, yeah? The exact gesture you'd play as a violinist if you were giving somebody, I'm a cellist, so I would do it like this, but if you're giving someone a lead, you go bum, right? Bum. It's the same attack, right? Because the harp has that feeling and boom, go, and contact, go. And I think that that's the gesture you're looking for here. So a soft attack at the beginning of bar one for the string and the timpani, then boom, boom.
Yep.
Okay, right. So this is the first bar, and bar. Good. And final thought on this is that the attack of what you want the harp to do is to be your pickup, not your arrival. So you went and on like that. You need is and on.
Okay. Yep.
That indicates in the pickup how they're going to attack it. Good. Let's try one other thing. So the tiny mouse we talked about. Let's say it's just traveling along a surface. So let's say we touch it and we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the bar is in motion, but you don't beat any of the beats. I'll count 4, 5, 6. 4, 5, 6, 1. Now, if you look at my hand, I take the pickup in motion. So 4, 5, 1, right? 4, 5, 1. So this is something to bear in mind with a 6 beat. Let's just take the left hand again. With a 6 beat, you have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 within it, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 within it. So a whole bar.
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And at any point, if you're looking for legato, you can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. So you can imagine a continuation of one vector while you, if I use the word, like continuing this feeling of being in 1, 4, 5, 6, 1. So you've actually got both. Your arm continues to feel the line of 1, but the lower part of your arm can get the beat. And that's sort of what I'm talking about here. It's why these opening bars are infinitely interesting. And frankly, you can do the same thing with the baton. It's the same thing. So if I say, I'm going to conduct it. Do you see how, by the way, in comparison now, doing this for the first bar seems a little bit austere?
Yeah, it seems really controlling.
Let me just show you. So we say, here's the first bar, we go, and 1. I'm still in that second bar. I'm doing 1, 2, no attack. 3, 4, 4, 5. You see, I have a bit of that playing in this one. So what should we do? Let's take the left hand again.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Let's add the music, and let's consider perhaps conducting the first, let's see, even just the first 5 measures.
Yep.
And then perhaps you arrive in measure 6, and then for the middle of the bar, you can introduce your right hand if you feel like.
Yep.
It's really excellent. And I did say, of course, the orchestra has the beat. I think you can find a way to be utterly calm and give the sense that you're not sort of making this about rhythm while giving a little bit more indications of first measure. And how am I doing that? Again, what I'm saying is it's 1 bar, 2, 2 bars, 2, 3. And what you can do is from out of that horizontal line, which I find much more expresses the feeling of the music, then you can do little impulses. So it'll be and 1, 4, and 2. And the same is true if you're using this hand. You go 1, 4. Now, of course, you know, in an exam or anything else, one needs to indicate that one understands it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like
conducting is more than that. Yeah.
I'm not trying to say that you are already way more than that, but it only starts to become interesting.
Yeah.
And we also think about like the hypermeter and because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is kind of straightforward, and it can become very like note for note. And our main job as conductors at the beginning of this piece is to help create the mixture between calm and then the rhythmic implications of what's going on. Please try it again, but try not to, even if you don't want to be big, try not to be too like small in a gesture. It's good to have a sense of continual motion. I'm sorry. You keep on stopping to give the pickup. Go motion 5, 6, like that. Yeah, you can. It's perfectly possible to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You know, if there's a balloon floating through the air, you don't go right. You go 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, and just keep it rounded in emotion. Unless you feel it, and it may be that you feel it more like that, but I don't think it sounds like that. Let's try one more. I'm gonna let you get to 5, 5 now, I promise. Sorry. Great job. Just that last attack of the first, second violins. Remember that we're in a general diminuendo in the double basses.
Yeah.
That's all you need. You somewhat subdivided the third, fourth beat to get clarity. But all that's really necessary is to control with the amplitude of your right hand that descending line. If you want it to slow a little bit, and just give a little attack there. If anything more than that, is likely to get a little bit too much sound. So things that I like, for example, the cordon anglais trumpet entry. When we did it, the first entry, you indicated as a pianissimo, you don't give too much espressivo. And then the next entry, you really indicate that it's a different sound. It's like which I think is really important and really good. Just going back to the opening bars, if you'll allow me. I think it might be a useful exercise to say to yourself, if I'm going to try and beat this in 4 different ways. One is beating 6 in the bar. One is beating 2 in the bar. One is beating 3 in the bar. Beating the entire bar. So the violas, it would be 3 in the bar. And then you've got the pizzicato, boom, boom, that attack. And then you've got the 1, that kind of feel. And then you've got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, I'm suggesting it just as an exercise because in for example, measure 4, you have essentially four competing rhythms. You've got the downbeat and the half bar,
Mm-hmm.
bom, 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 and then you have two, three, and then you have three, three. And the thing is that if you can, within any given moment of the bar, indicate any of those things with your hands. So if you want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, you can feel those different planes of what you do physically.
Mm-hmm.
Very maneuverable, right? But it needs to be internalized, because if it's conscious and you're like, I want to do this, and then I can do it in my body, it'll be too late. But you could just do that as an exercise. What does that look like? Well, bar 3, for example, if we just hit the cello line, we go. And again, I'm thinking that 3 is within a big one. So if you see, what I'm not doing is going I'm thinking and my 2 is here on the axis, my 3 is here on the axis, rather than all being here.
Yeah.
It's the question of subdividing with mobility. And in the the pickup to bar 4 and the violas, you might say 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, the same thing again. I would point out that in the heart part, you consistently ask for om, om, and that needs to be built into your fundamental gesture.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you want dum dum, in which case you do that. That's fine. If you decide that's what you want, no problem. But I think there's anything that's in 3 or 6, there's inherent change of color to the second beat into the fifth beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, boom, boom. Now, this recording and many recordings take the open considerably below 1/16.
Yeah, it's pretty slow.
It's fine. It's beautiful, and it's commonly done. I think it's really interesting to me. You start to feel the hemiola more. So maybe, again, for your work, I don't know, what speed did you do it when you did it?
It was a little bit faster than that, but not much, honestly. I was on the slow side.
Well, there's plenty of interesting recordings out there. Actually, the premiere recording of this piece, which was done not long after it was written, it starts on the quick side and then it kind of slows down in bar 7, and it does lots of interesting things. But
Mm-hmm.
first performances can also be awful, right?
Of course.
But either way, this is worth thinking about, because the same applies. In the slow tempo, you can still do 1. Anyway, so that's that. Let's, because I think we only have a couple of minutes left. Let's talk about. Let's take the cello.
Octet. Yeah.
And again, we're thinking about tempo here. It's actually Debussy's tempo to the Oscar.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds really groovy when you try that. It sounds amazing. It's hard, but certain things are easier as well. And one has to ask oneself, I find it, if a composer, of course we have interpretational freedoms, of course we do, and it sounds beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
If we say to ourselves, okay, let's just imagine what that sounds like when we it actually transforms the meaning of the music.
Oh yeah, it's very nervous and agitated.
It's an interesting decision when we as interpreters decide not to do that, because what it says is that perhaps his intention for how the music should feel is wrong, or we need to work very hard to do and it's much harder to find that agitato in the slow tempo.
Yeah.
What happens a lot is that we do the slow tempo and we make it maestoso and sort of, but it's a big point, I think, and it also affects how we conduct it. But maybe you can just go in on it, and I'd like you to give me just 2 versions. We don't need the music to play. The version where we do the maestoso, it's kind of on a lot of recordings, and then just show me how you would read it if we did it in the tempo he asks for.
Do you want to do 2 before 9 or directly at 9? 2 before? Okay. So this is the majestic version?
Cool. I think, super. I think, where's my baton gone? There's a little bit more you could indicate in that measure. So you go, which is all good, except it starts in piano, right? So,
right.
Pa would be more accurate. P, okay? But then we have on that second beat that's forzado, and immediately we need to be indicating the diminuendo for everybody. So, yeah, I'll do it in slow motion. Pianissimo, accent, horns, diminuendo, and go 2, 3. We really need to down pianissimo. One, bamba. There's a lot of detail.
Yep.
You want to do those 2 bars in slow motion for me? I'll just 3, 4 like that. Okay. So you gave the pickup here and then you landed here. You went and I think but
oh yeah, okay.
The amplitude from 1 to 2, not yeah.
Yeah.
Great, super. Now, one thing you might notice is that when I do it 1, 2, I use the baton. At the moment, you could take your baton out of your hand and it would be the same, which is fine, right? But if you have a baton, you use it. You use the distance that it creates. So if you cut the whole thing from your fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4. Get used to using this, like, whoops. Don't do that. But 1, 2, 3. Right? You can keep the hand down here and say a lot. Try it again. Try it again. Don't use your left hand. Good. Excellent. Just now try and indicate the dynamic change with your right hand. So it's 1, 2, away.
Yeah.
Go. Good. That was really good. And now because time is short, let's just do that one more time. Now go into the quicker version of bar 3. I know we didn't do the maestros, but I just want to say it before.
So we're at 9 or we're 2 before? 2 before.
Great, super. I would just let me just conduct through the passage from 2 before 9 and look at the sort of amplitude changes you could have. Let's say, ti, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot, but remember the cellos are don't do this. Gestures will help to give them schwung. One last time, and then I'll have to. One before 2 before 9. Crescendo, diminuendo. Diminuendo. Fortissimo. Sustain, diminuendo. Great, super. You have all the skill set. Let's continue to play with that. But hey, bravo, it's a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Bravo.
Merci beaucoup, Frédéric. C'était fantastique, avec et sans musique.
Avec et sans musique.
Oui. So, Alexander, just one quick question for you from the audience before we bring in Charles-Éric. Do you practice yoga or dance?
Yoga, yes, and